Thank you, President Gadati. Please join me in stating the five-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And is it fun? Did y'all know there's a hand motion? I'm just kidding. Please bow with me in prayer. Dear Almighty God, we come before you today and thank you for newness, for making all things new, for a fresh new week that allows for new possibilities, the beginnings of a new Rotary year that so wisely provides continuity of leadership and programs balanced with fresh perspectives that keep everything exciting, an approaching new and hopefully cooler fall season, a brand new museum to visit in Fort Smith, even a new year for our beloved Razorbacks, and perhaps a new start for each of us. Help us to recognize the inherent blessing of a new start. Help us to never overlook the opportunities we are given to begin again, to reflect on what's working and what's not, to keep first things first, and to always remember the strength that you have placed in each of us to show kindness and care to all those you place in our paths. Please help us to acknowledge the blessing of each new day we are given. Give us wisdom to make sound decisions, energy to make the most of every opportunity, and love that we might share with the world in need. In your name I pray, amen. And finally, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Now we'd like to welcome all of our guests. So when we call your name, would you please stand, as well as the member with whom you arrived. So first, Miss Susan Naiman, who is here with the Marshals Museum. We have David Porter, who's here with Alfred Williams. Jonathan Seaborn is with Aaron Lubin. Christina Ellman is with Alex Hudson. Laura Stanley is with Sarah Bennings. Reese Rowland is with Sarah Bennings. Lene Falzer is with Alicia Curtis. And we have a good chunk of people here with Quentin Kane. We have Christian George, Michaela Bax, Emery Moore, Hannah Williams, Asia Adams, Zarian Butler, Kamaya Tyler, Mecca Walls, Adrian Wyatt Jr., and then finally we have Rachel Moynihan with Amy Mines. Welcome, y'all.
Good afternoon. I am excited to announce and introduce to you our latest new member for Club 99, Larry Clark. He and his sponsor, Jerry Damerow, are going to join me up here while I tell you a little bit about Coach Clark. So Larry has a BS in computer science from UA Little Rock and spent 33 years at Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield as a software engineer. In 2007, Coach Clark founded the nonprofit Life Skills for Youth. Those of you who were members last year, you enjoyed his time when he was on the panel for us. It's an after-school and summer program for youth and young adults between 5 and 18 in response to the need for supplemental education and physical fitness programming outside of the traditional academic setting. His experience working with these youth have given him firsthand knowledge of the need for and results of positive programs, services, and activities. LSY programs mentor youth and help them become responsible, positive citizens. Larry lives in Little Rock with his wife, Tammy, and as you might expect, enjoys baseball, basketball, football, pickleball, basically sports. Please join me in welcoming Coach Larry Clark to Club 99.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and welcome, Coach Clark. All right, before we get going, I wanted to pass on some sad news about a fellow member and our past district governor, David Menz. Some of you may know that David has been in the hospital after experiencing heart failure. He just recently had bypass surgery, and he is doing well, but I think it's going to be a long road to recovery for him. So please keep David and his wife Evelyn in your thoughts and prayers. We just wanted our club to know, because he's such a dear Rotarian and friend to many in this room. So next, I would like to invite Alicia Curtis up. Alicia is our chair of our new member engagement subcommittee for socials. So she's going to tell you about some upcoming fun. So please mark your calendar after she gives you these dates. All right, thank you.
Well, President Gadati, thank you so much for appointing me the new social chair. I'll try to make everyone proud this year. These are just a couple of hopefully many upcoming events that we're going to host this year. But we've mentioned this, and you'll see this in your newsletter too. There's a link in your newsletter to sign up. But on Monday, August 7th from 3 to 5, at Dunbar Magnet, we are going to be needing lots of volunteers to stuff 400 backpacks. So we're going to need all hands on deck. We're partnering with Eat My Catfish. They're putting up collection boxes at all of their Central Arkansas locations. So please sign up if you can. That's from 3 to 5 on August the 7th. And also on August the 7th from 5 to 7, we're going to have a happy hour at Lost 40 right after we stuff backpacks. So please join us then if you can too. Okay, and then on Thursday, August the 10th from 5:30 to 7:30, also at Dunbar, that's when we're going to be hosting a back-to-school bash to welcome all the Dunbar students and present all the backpacks to them. So please come and join us for that as well. So 2 events on August 7th, 1 on August 10th. We hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Definitely hope you guys come out and help us at Dunbar, but definitely come to happy hour because it's going to be our first social and it's going to be great. All right, so let me dive into today's Power of Fun tip, which is about eliminating some key barriers to true fun. We've talked about what true fun is. So distraction. Distraction is something that this entire room of busy people definitely gets. You know, you're spinning a lot of plates. That means distractions can come easily and in many forms. But did you know that distraction is the greatest offender to having true fun? Because distraction can harm playfulness, connection, and flow, which creates that true fun moment. So distracted is definitely about not being present. In fact, the Latin root means to drag away. So it's easy to understand that anything that distracts us from being present blocks that true fun moment. So if we want to have true fun, we need to minimize the amount of time that we spend trying to pay attention to multiple things at once, which I'm a horrible offender of. So this is me talking to myself right now. Distraction also gets in the way of playfulness because playfulness requires active engagement. And when you are participating in witty banter or having a good belly laugh, that you're fully in that moment. But if you're distracted, you're not paying attention to that conversation and that environment around you. So distraction also affects connection because we all know that feeling when somebody is physically in the room but not mentally in the room with you. And we've all done that to each other and to our families. So the other big kind of barrier to true fun is judgment. And judgment is a definite fun killer because when we judge things, we have to step out of an experience so that we can evaluate it. So when we stepped out of the present, moment, like we just learned with the risks of distraction, we are obviously not in flow. So when we are judging others or ourselves, we are really destroying that moment of fun. So remember, comparison is the thief of joy. So, in our quest for true fun, remember, focus, don't try to juggle all the things while you're in that true fun moment. Put down the phone, shut down your social media for the moment, and be in a judgment-free zone. So, next, I'm so excited because I'd like to show our next member video, and you will love this video of Brad Burleson sharing what he does for fun.
My name is Brad Burleson. I work for Content Titan in client relations and production. And I also have a side job working for a nonprofit in Hot Springs, Low Key Arts, as a director of development. If it's not fun, I'm gonna make it fun. I also serve on the committee of the world's shortest St. Patrick's Day Parade in Hot Springs. And that's led to just incredible experiences, from hanging out with the village people to being on Twitch, who is on Ellen's show. I was adjusting my strap while I was in the parade and also dancing, and I made a really weird dance move that was on his Instagram and got 30,000 likes and 30,000 embarrassing likes for me, I guess. I also am a judge for the Stuart Pennington Running of the Tubs. To watch people push bathtubs down historic Bathhouse Row in Hot Springs with water splashing everywhere is so much fun, but the real fun in that is, as a judge, you get extra points for bribes. We've been given cash, we've been given bath products from Bathhouse Soapery. I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to. I've got a get out of jail free card that's signed by the chief of police that's good for any misdemeanor. I'm on the board of the Hot Springs Documentary Film Festival. Also Arkansas Shorts Film Festival that I've volunteered for. A really fun thing that I've done is I took a film class called Inception to Projection, and it's a 6-week film course where you learn how to write, cast, direct, produce a film, a short film that premieres at Arkansas Shorts. It convinced me that I needed a career change, and I left my corporate job, and now I'm in the TV and film industry, and I also help produce that class now. The very last weekend, we get together and shoot those films, so we spend probably 2 16-hour days shooting films, and just being on set and being a part of the creation of someone else's story and dream. There's so much joy that comes from that, something that can't be explained. And then to see it on a big screen and to see people react to it is absolutely incredible.
Y'all, Brad's middle name is fun, truly. I've known him for a long time. He's a fun guy. Thank you for doing that, Brad. So now I would like to invite Rotarian Kelly Bass, the CEO of the Museum Discovery, to the stage to introduce today's speaker, and he will be moderating the discussion too. Thank you.
All right, fellow Rotarians. Ben Johnson is the CEO of the U.S. Marshals Museum in Fort Smith, a position that he moved into a little less than 1 year ago. A 20-year museum veteran, Ben began his career in the curatorial role with the Strategic Air Command Museum in Ashland, Nebraska, and has since held executive leadership roles in Oregon, at museums in Oregon, New York, Iowa, and now Arkansas. Ben came to the Marshals Museum from the Putnam Museum and Science Center in Davenport, Iowa, where he was vice president of museum experiences, responsible for the museum's exhibits, its educational programming, and a curatorial department caring for more than 500,000 individual objects. Prior to his time at the Putnam Museum and Science Center, he was executive director of the Glenn H. Curtis Museum in Hammondsport, New York. Now, in a little bit, when Ben and I chat, you'll learn more. Obviously, you'll learn a lot about the U.S. Marshals Museum. but you'll also learn something about the U.S. Marshal Service, which he has admitted he has had to become an expert at pretty quickly. But just today, in reading the newspaper on my trusty Democrat Gazette-owned iPad, I came upon something and I thought, this might be worth mentioning. The headline is 186 nabbed in extended stay. An operation consisting of 7 Arkansas law enforcement agencies resulted in the arrest of 186 wanted individuals and repeat offenders last week, officials announced Monday. Operation Extended Stay included the Arkansas State Police, the U.S. Marshals Service Eastern Arkansas Fugitive Task Force, along with several local police departments. So they made 71 arrests, including 12 felony charges, and issued 627 traffic citations. So there's your U.S. Marshal Service at work. So Ben, welcome to Arkansas. Welcome to Rotary Club of Little Rock. All right.
Is this thing on?
It is working. The AV team here is great. So to say it's been a whirlwind for you and continues to be a whirlwind would be putting it mildly. So you came on board in this role last August 22nd, and the museum opened July 1. So congratulations are definitely in order.
Yeah, it's been a little nuts for the last 10 months.
Yeah.
It only took 16 years, but, we were finally able to push it over the finish line and have been able to take a little bit of a deep breath over the last couple of weeks.
And I'm sure as we were talking at the table, the announcement from the U.S. Marshal Service that this museum would be located in Fort Smith was made in 2007. So those of us who are always rooting for Arkansas and our continued pushes forward, we're really excited about that news. And of course, there have been folks in Fort Smith working on this for years before it was announced. So it's really about a 20-year journey. And I think you said or heard that there are people walking in this museum now that it's open with tears coming out of their eyes, because how many things do we work on that take 20 years to make it happen?
Yeah, one of the things that when I sat down with my bosses last fall and they said, okay, you've had 6 weeks to wander around and talk to people, what do we do next? One of the reasons that I said open, that is the only thing that we can do now, is open the doors, whatever we have to do, is because of some folks that were like that have been pushing this rock up the hill for so long. And my second week on the job, I got a chance to go to Fort Worth and talk to the Retired Marshals Association, and sat with a gentleman who was there with his kids, and he was 92 and had been at Ole Miss with James Meredith guarding his dorm back in the 60s. And he, was sitting in his wheelchair and just looked over and said, am I going to see this before I die?
Wow.
Because, not just in Fort Smith, but the Marshal Service has been talking about a museum for 35, 40 years. And so there was a lot of folks that didn't believe they were going to see it. And I'm glad that they can.
Yeah. So clearly, the big task for a long time was fundraising, and we know fundraising is a never-ending job in any nonprofit. But then, of course, there was the creation or the design of the building, and then the design of the development of what the exhibits would be, and the design of those exhibits, and then the construction of those exhibits. And then when you came in, what were, other than, like you say, getting ready to open, what were your primary tasks starting last August to push it again, finally past the finish line?
When I first got a phone call from the recruiting firm, I was having a particularly bad day at my previous job. And so I said, sure, you want to talk about a new job? And so the very first thing, we had the preliminary thing, and I got on Google and said, okay, I never heard of the U.S. Marshals Museum. Let's get on Google and see what's up. Well, April of last year was not an outstanding time for the Marshals Museum as an organization, and was not an ideal time for someone looking to make a move reading the news. It was we had a couple bad days in the preceding 5 months. So really the plan was talk to people, build support, identify the problems, and rule number one, do no harm.
Right.
No more self-inflicted wounds of any kind. So really it was just talk to everybody. And it was within weeks, though, that I internally made the decision, whatever we do, it has to be open. This is not a scenario where we go, well, I'll just kick it down the road another couple of years and hope some more money comes in and just kind of see what happens. That was not an option.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little more about this situation that you came into in a little bit, but I think, again, while all of us have heard of the Marshal Service and we've been following the trajectory of from concept to reality of the museum, I think other than what I just quoted out of today's newspaper, folks might have a hard time telling you what the U.S. Marshals do, and what they do now may not be what they were doing when they were founded as the oldest branch of law enforcement. Can you just give us a little thumbnail on a Marshal Service?
Yeah, because I didn't have really any clue what they did.
Right.
Between when I booked the interview and did the interview, I tried to read some books that were about this big that just said, what do these men and women do every day? What is the role of the Marshal Service? And to find out that, you work your way through the history books, I just found myself saying, they were there too? This
Right.
event and that event, and from 1789 to present, they've been basically at every major twist and turn of the American narrative that you can imagine. And so getting to learn more about what they do today, they still do one of the basic jobs that they were created to do, which was judicial security for the federal judicial system, guarding judges, guarding attorneys, guarding witnesses. But they're kind of the other duties agency. So as the FBI and the ATF and everybody is increasingly more specialized, the Marshal Service has had an opportunity to step in and fill some of the gaps and do witness protection, civil asset forfeiture. So Bernie Madoff gets arrested for what he got arrested for. The Marshal Service are the ones that manage all of his assets while he was going through the court process, and then at the end, they could auction all that stuff off and try to get it back to the victim. So they do an awful lot of stuff, including what you read about this morning of working with local jurisdictions to provide manpower when they don't have the resources to do it, and
Sure.
they're really good at catching fugitives.
Yeah, and obviously they have, again, that was a specialized unit of the U.S. Marshals that's in eastern Arkansas, doing that work, so that's incredible. So I read that in the announcement of Fort Smith being chosen as the site for the U.S. Marshal Museum, quote, Fort Smith is considered sacred ground for the Marshal Service, as more marshals and deputy marshals died riding out of Fort Smith during the frontier era than at any other place or time in our nation's history. So we're really paying homage to those who gave their lives in service to the United States and to law enforcement. So that's grim, but that's notable.
It was, and there were other major cities that were vying for this project, and to its credit, Fort Smith really rolled out the red carpet in a lot of different ways. And in addition to them really saying that we want to bring it home, not just to Arkansas, but to Fort Smith, when the Marshal Service looked at the history and really talked about what it means to be a deputy U.S. Marshal all the way back to 1789, these men and women put their lives on the line every single day. They don't know if they're going to go home. And to say that more men and women have died serving out of this judicial district than anywhere else in the country, it made a lot of sense. And one of the things that we'll probably see in a picture here in a minute is a big part of what we do is the Samuel M. Seacard Hall of Honor, which recognizes the 381, I think that's the right number now, marshals, deputy marshals, special deputies, posse members going back into the 19th century that have died in the line of duty since 1789.
Well, let's hope you don't have to add any names to that list anytime soon for sure. So you brought this up earlier, but circumstances preceding your arrival were not ideal. Your predecessor resigned in early March 2022 after an incident a few months before led to 2 felony assault charges. So, and of course, it was very well extensively covered in the media. So about 5 months passed between his leaving and your arriving. And it sounds like you've already really answered this, that what you did was just assure everybody we're on track, everything's moving forward, and you can count on me to provide the leadership that's going to get us over the finish line.
Yeah. It was an interesting couple of months, and this whole thing has been really an opportunity. In crisis management is one thing, but really it's just a matter of communicating and really being a stable force in a chaotic world, which, any business, any day of the week could be the chaotic world. But being able to step in and to the board, to the staff that stuck through it all, to the community, to be able to just say, take a deep breath. It's all going to be fine. We've done a great job. We've raised a bunch of money. We built this beautiful building. We have the support of the United States Marshals Service and Fort Smith and Arkansas. It could be, it's hard to see it right now, but it could be a lot worse than it actually is right now. So take a deep breath. We're going to get through it. And it's just a matter of making, one day follows the next, and just trying to do our best and really not run from it. I told them from the very beginning, I will take as many hard questions as necessary. I had nothing to do with it. It was one guy's bad day. And, to be honest, the mission is more important than any one individual. And so for us to be able to get out in the community and say, this is about supporting the men and women of the United States Marshal Service and telling their story and patting them on the back a little bit, and enjoying the opportunity to kind of tell a broader American story, whether it's me or anybody else.
Right.
The mission is worthwhile.
Sure. And, again, I'm a CEO of a museum right down the street, and to see when I loosely say the community of Fort Smith, obviously that's made up of individuals and businesses who shared the vision, the passion, and the fortitude to stick through this and continue to beat the streets and, in search of money that they successfully raised. It's really impressive. It's what every single nonprofit CEO needs and wants. But I'll also just say from personal experience, my wife and I, one of our main hobbies is traveling, or if we need to hear music that we like. And I've been to a couple of really cool venues in Fort Smith that has afforded me time to have a cool Airbnb and go to great restaurants and see the cool murals on the silos, and to go to see where Elvis was, inducted into, or he spent his first days of service. Fort Smith is a cool place.
Yeah, everybody's got to go see where Elvis got his hair cut.
Yes.
That's the most important thing in the city of Fort
But
Smith.
I'm sure in your career, you haven't spent a lot of time thinking about Arkansas or Fort Smith, but have you enjoyed the Fort Smith experience?
My wife and I have had the opportunity. Museums is kind of a weird industry, like a lot of industries, but it's pretty niche. So if you want to get a better job or a bigger job or the next thing, you got to be willing to kind of get up and move around the country. And we've been on the West Coast, we've been on the East Coast. We're from the Midwest originally, and this is a great mix of the best qualities of most of those places.
Right.
Some Fort Smith's too small, and other people say Fort Smith's too big or whatever. I don't know how it could be too big, but it really between Northwest Arkansas, the Fort Smith River Valley area, and even the rest of the state of Arkansas and over into Oklahoma. I mean, there's everything that you could want to do is within a couple hours, and we've had the opportunity and really enjoyed eating our way through the culinary delights of Arkansas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I'm back on my diet after moving, but it's been great.
Yeah, that's great. It really, really is. And again, to kind of stay on the theme, I'm sure you could name names that may or may not mean a lot to us, but there clearly have been some pillars of this project with your board of directors, with the community, I guess, as individuals and as businesses. Is this something you've seen, this level of dedication and passion and support in your other jobs? Or I guess you haven't maybe been in capital situations of needing to raise a lot of money.
We've raised money, not quite at this scale.
Right.
I think it's easy in the beginning to get people to sign on to an idea and to say that we want to be, we believe in this. But as the months and the years and then this pitfall and that pitfall, and you try to get a sales tax passed, and that doesn't work. There's just a lot of stuff where you get in your own way, and the fact that you can keep people excited and energetic. The community was supportive, but it is still a scenario where I walked into a really nasty situation that put a bad taste into a lot of people's mouths. And so at that point, the fact that any of those, the ArcBest, First National Bank, the Walton Family Foundation, and a handful of folks who've been our partners over the last handful of years have really allowed us to continue operating in a way that I'm certain that a fair number of even true believers thought, man, this just ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, and I've read Rex Nelson's pieces on coming over and seeing it. And you think about Arkansas, and we're just, a few months ago, we saw the opening of the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts, which was about a $175 million project, which are numbers that just make my eyes roll back in my head. I did some quick math in just what I saw, and I saw $39 million for the building and $8 million for exhibits, which is $47 million. Is that about right, or is it a little more than that?
I think if you were, there's the staff. We actually have had a staff for 16 years. We've been out in the community and around the country doing educational things. We have had events. We've done a variety of different things. So there's been some of that. But the building itself was probably, 30, 35. If we tried to build it again now, it'd be 70, 75.
Right.
And then the exhibit content itself, from the idea of what are we going to put in this 20,000 square feet up to the finished product that you can see now was about $10 million.
Because that takes design and fabrication, and then of course all of the due diligence on the everything that's written and all of the work. So the museum that I'm with is in the process of having new exhibits built, so I'm very familiar. So now let's talk about the museum experience itself, which is really, and I tell our staff, that's what it's all about. What happens when you come to the museum? And that's been a critical area of focus for museums forever, but that's what you did in your past job, so it's right up your alley. But rather than just ask you what we can expect to see and do when we come to your museum, you've got a presentation that I'm going to ask our AV folks to put up. And if you just speak briefly to each slide and tell us what we're seeing, and because I know lots of us will end up there, but now we're getting a sneak preview.
Yes, so presentation is pretty loose description of what you're going to see. It's a lot of really pretty pictures of a building that we love, and the exhibit that we're walking into. So just so everybody knows, one of the biggest things for us, the building itself, which was finished at the tail end of 2019, a lot of people thought, well, if this is an Old West museum, why doesn't this look like an Old West building? Well, the Marshal Service was in the Old West, but this is a modern museum telling a modern story that goes back to 1789. So if any of you have seen the movie High Noon with Gary Cooper, the very last scene of that movie, Gary Cooper finishes whatever Gary Cooper was doing in that movie and takes off his badge and drops it on the ground and walks off, into the sunset. Well, that last vision of the Marshal's badge in the dirt, kind of at an angle, I'm told was the inspiration for the design of this building. So if you look at it, and a couple of the architects are in the room, so absolutely I can see the star design. It's kind of like one of those Magic Eye posters from the 80s. You kind of got to relax your eye a little bit sometimes to see it. But it is an amazingly beautiful building. And for the folks that, hadn't had a chance to actually go in it at any point yet, or, the chuckleheads on Facebook and Instagram that are always keen. This picture is one that I took my first week on the job. This was what the inside of our exhibit hall looked like when I walked in.
That's less than a year ago.
That was 11 months ago. The images that we have here are, this is the Marshal Service Hall of Honor. So the plaques on the wall there are the names, locations, and dates of folks who were killed in the line of duty. They're from all over the country. They're roughly alphabetical, but they're no chronological order. The blank ones that we have in there are for when, not if, but when we need to add more. This is a kind of a funky angle that of our atrium, kind of looking back towards the front desk. And this atrium space is the most amazing view of the Arkansas River that you're going to get anywhere, full stop. I don't know where else you can get that. The very first gallery that you walk into, the previous picture, there's a giant 30-foot tall Marshall's badge that you walk into the gallery space. The permanent exhibit space is about 18,000 square feet, give or take. You walk in, and like any American history story, we begin with the Constitution of the United States. That is where the Marshal Service began, and what we try to do over the rest of time of this is tell the story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, both of the United States and the Marshal Service. So in this is a great example of, within about 10 feet of each other, right here, you have this wonderful image of Frederick Douglass becoming the first black United States Marshal, abolitionist, former enslaved individual. 6 or 8 feet before you get there, there's a plaque that talks about the Marshal Service being responsible for enforcing federal laws that were on the books, like the Fugitive Slave Act, which is a very challenging part of their story, but one that they were very, not just interested, they were passionate about making sure that we tell all those stories. So this is a broad timeline of events that really just sets the stage for all of the men and women and some of the key facets of information as you walk through, 234 years. You come around the corner and you walk into an immersive exhibit experience. This is not old stuff in glass cases and words on the wall, much like, I haven't been through this museum yet, but I'm going to go through this one when we're done. I imagine it's a lot like what you're going to see here. What we have is, this is a campfire under the stars, where this is 4 life-size figures, United States Marshals representing 4 centuries, 1789 or 1700s, 1819, and then the 21st century. They're men and women, they're black and white, they've come from different time periods, but the idea is that they have all done versions of the same job. And so they're sitting around a campfire, telling stories, talking to each other, and as they do, their stories are narrated in shadow on the rock wall behind them. The Frontier Marshals Gallery is what a lot of folks expected the entire building would be. Old West outlaws and lawmen ride out into Indian Territory, as Oklahoma was called at the time, and get the bad guys and bring them back. It is that story, but it's so much more. This is what we call the magic book. This is 13 oil paintings of the original 13 Marshals. This is a book that as you turn the page, the highlight changes to the portrait of that individual, talks about stories, and the book comes to life with animation and sounds and music, a little bit like something out of Harry Potter, but for someone who didn't read the books or see any of the movies, I don't know the reference, but apparently it was a very popular thing. One thing that, doing a history museum with some of the challenging subject matter that we talk about, one of the big things that my team, even before I got here, made a significant effort is, how do you tell all the stories as equitably as possible? Or how do you get as many voices into the narrative as possible? And so this is the Going Snake Theater, which was a collaboration between the Marshals Museum, our representatives, with the 5 civilized tribes of Oklahoma and Arkansas. That's a legal term. I'm not being snarky when I say civilized tribes. I've had a couple of people kind of point that out, that doesn't sound kosher anymore, but that is an official term. And so we work closely with them to be able to tell as much of this story, which is about the deadliest day in U.S. Marshals history, but involved members of the Cherokee Nation, Marshals and Cherokee citizens dying in a gunfight. And the descendants of both sides are still around, and were involved in a symposium that we had a while ago. This is the inside of the Marshal's office. So one of the most important figures in Marshals history is Bass Reeves, which from Arkansas. Bass is a uniquely American story. born into slavery, never learned to read or write, became a law enforcement officer, and for all intents and purposes, one of the most feared fugitive trackers in the West, and had arrested upwards of 3,000 individuals. And so this is our opportunity to tell some of his story. We have much more we want to tell, but this is one of the places where we have a gun that we can definitively prove was actually in his family, going back to one of his relatives. Bass Reeves memorabilia is kind of like pieces of the true cross. You know, if you put it all together, you'd have a whole forest full of trees. So we've been able to do a little bit with that. You come out of the marshal's office, you go into the saloon, because it wouldn't be the Old West without a saloon. We have on the right there a beautiful case with a saddle previously owned by John Wayne. Thus the W was not a movie saddle, it was just a cool, it's John Wayne's saddle. Why not put it on? That's on loan from John L. Hunt. It was sat in J.B. Hunt's office for many years, and so they placed it on loan to us. What you have right here in the center, this is a digital interactive poker game, trivia game thing. That's its official title. And so it's outlaws and lawmen, and sometimes both, and the quicker that you answer the question and pick out who they are, the more chips you get. That in the back is a bar with a digital bartender that talks to you and tells stories. I've caught people actually speaking to him. He's not actually speaking to you. It's a loop, but in the right situation. So this, past that, you're moving into a changing nation. So this is a lot of the 20th and early 21st century. This is all of the major incidents that the Marshal Service is involved in. The Marshal's Challenge on the right, that's an interactive courtroom experience where you sit down and some couple of deputy marshals from the Washington, D.C. office got voluntold that they were going to be in our interactive experience. So they have done a great job in that, and they walk you through scenarios and basically say, hey, here's what we know. Someone's going to make an attempt on the life of federal judge X. What do you do next? And you have the opportunity to kind of choose your own adventure to an extent as they walk you through everything. This is where we really get into some challenging subject matter. So this is the first of 3 galleries that talks about the changing nation. So this deals with anti-war protests for or on behalf of various Native American groups throughout the 21st century, natural disasters, terrorist attacks. Yeah, it's intense. This is probably the least intense of these 3. The next one, as we'll get to it, is the one that we found. There's a lot of, over the last 3-4 years, at least in the museum world, there's been a challenge of how do you tell stories that nobody wants to hear, or that certain segments of the population don't want to hear. And for many stories, it's, say, on one side of one group of stories is not being told. And that upsets people, as it should. This is the center one. This is what I call mostly the domestic terrorism section. That's not really what it is, but from the Whiskey Rebellion up through Prohibition, Medina, Ruby Ridge, the Oklahoma City bombing, this is where folks maybe from a different bent look at it, that the federal government, especially federal law enforcement, is the enemy. And so this is where we tell some stories that make some of those folks not very happy. We've only had 2 bomb threats in 11 months that I've been there, so it's been okay. Luckily, they live elsewhere. This is the last main gallery is Justice for All. So this is where the Marshal Service role in the integration of schools, protecting civil rights, both really on both sides. Within a couple of days of each other, you can have the marshals handing a court order to Dr. King saying, you can't march tomorrow, and then court things happen. I'm not a judge. Court things happen, and then 2 days later, they'll say, no, you have permission, and then they'll go back, and then they end up marching with the group. If you come from take a photo from the other direction, there's this great scene of marching over the bridge into Selma that they had a hand in. And then this is the very kind of tail end of our gallery experience, which is modern marshals. So this is who are they, what do they do today, how do you get to be one, what's their training look like. So we've got this cool blacked out kind of tactical van in there, which was fun. We couldn't finish the gallery walls until we moved the van in there, so that's never leaving. And then we have a live one of those after the Marshal Service by the numbers. The next panel over is a current top 15 most wanted fugitives. The FBI had a top 10, and the Marshal Service said we can do better, so they did a top 15. But that's live. So as they like you read about, when they bring fugitives in and capture them, we put captured on the front of their picture, and then eventually they'll rotate out once they get replaced with new folks. So we've got some outstanding stuff, a high degree of interactivity. This is an interactive thing that I physically haven't tried yet. It was fun. We had the governor there watching her have some of her people do it, and she was cheering them on. This is basically, how do you train? So you're chasing a bad guy digitally down the street. And it's always a bad guy. It's never a bad girl. I should tell us something. And this is an interactive oral history theater. So you've got 18,000 square feet to walk in, and as cool as it is, here's a picture of our store. You should all buy a t-shirt. We do ship, so if you want to buy holiday gifts of any kind, we'll ship it anywhere in the country. I'm going to sell a lot of t-shirts. And then this is our statue of the Light Horseman, which was a statue commissioned. Yeah, we're probably running out of time. Commissioned by the 5 tribes, because the native tribes in Indian Territory in Oklahoma and the Marshal Service interacted, not always in a confrontational manner. A lot of tribal police ended up becoming marshals, or were marshals at the same time that they represented their tribal nations. And so it is a much more supportive, mutual telling of history than I think a lot of people would have expected.
Well, that is stunningly nice museum. I mean, really, really well done. The firm who created all that for you should certainly get kudos, as should the architects. Beautiful building.
Great job, team.
Yeah, no, it's stunning. And what another jewel for our state. And recently we had an announcement that the earliest talks are going on in an organization to put a children's museum next door. So it's just, again, onward and upward for your museum, for Fort Smith. That's fabulous. So just a couple other questions before we open it up. Do you have so you opened 3 weeks ago. I'm sure your board forced you to project attendance. Has it been what you thought it would be?
They did ask. They were interested as much as I was, but I was very quick to remind them that as much as we can do the magical math and kind of anticipate this, that, and the other thing, it's all a bit of a dart throw until you actually open the doors, like with any business. And we have been pleasantly surprised with north of 8,000 visitors through our first 3 weeks and a couple of days.
That's a lot, yeah.
And that doesn't mean next week or next month we're going to have 8,000, and the month after that, but we're going to take it. And after 16 years, any paying customer was
Oh,
was
for
good.
sure. Oh, it's just great to see them come through and finally get to experience what your team's been working on forever. So how many folks will, if you're not fully staffed now, and I guess you are if you're open, about how many people are employed? About what's your annual budget? Just to get a sense of the size of the business.
Yeah, so our initial budget that we had for the first fiscal year was around $2.5 million.
Yeah.
We think a good chunk of that we're going to be able to support through operational activity, earned revenue. We are not a part of the federal government. We're not a part of the state government or local government. We're an independent nonprofit. So as much as I would like the feds to pony up with a check, I don't think that's probably going to happen anytime real soon. So I do actually have to charge people admission.
Sure.
And between admission and memberships and T-shirt sales, buy a T-shirt, we're going to do all right. And then staff-wise, we're about 30. Probably half of those are kind of seasonal help for the rest of the summer and into the fall.
Well, again, geeking out on my museum background a little bit. I mean, when was on the board of directors of the Museum of Discovery, I just thought of the museum in terms of the exhibits that I went and engaged with on my way to board meetings. But there's a lot of other stuff going on. Are you all going to, have you developed programming? I mean, do you have things you're doing in classrooms or school groups part of your component, I mean, of your structure? How's all that look?
Yeah, one of the things that we did even prior to actually opening the building is educational opportunities. I changed her title. What's her title now? Chief Programs Officer. Prior to that, had a handful of other titles, over 12 years with the museum, and we've only been open 3 weeks. She is one who's literally written the book about Marshal Service history, at least as directed towards children. So we've done a lot of education stuff, and now we actually get to do it with a building.
Great.
Which will be fun.
And I'm sure that the folks who are promoting Fort Smith as a tourism destination, you all have become their best friends and vice versa, because they've got something new and exciting and big and great to sell.
I think from the state level, from the regional level, and really in Fort Smith, the question for however many years was, when's the Marshals Museum going to open?
Sure.
When can we bring visitors down there? Is it ever going to open? So now that we're there, they are very, very pleased.
Good. Well, that's great. I'm assuming that you're maintaining an active relationship with the U.S. Marshal Service itself. I'm sure they were consultants on the content and will maintain a relationship to just stay engaged.
Yeah, the Marshal Service is great. I do not speak on behalf of the Marshal Service. They're a separate federal agency, but they are outstanding in a variety of different capacities. They're always willing to answer the phone and help and tell the story, but also just help in other ways.
Great.
They're real great people.
Well, super. Well, Ben, thank you so much. This is really a great sneak preview for us of your museum, and I look forward to going there. So thank you very much for being our guest.
Thanks, guys.
Does anybody have any questions? And I'll repeat them for our folks who may be on through Zoom. Yes. I'll let. The question was, is the 92-year-old former marshal you were talking about, any chance that he'll get a chance to come to the museum?
So sadly, I don't know. I don't think he was there for our opening. I've reached out to the Marshal Service Association. They're holding their annual meeting in Fort Smith this fall, and I am sincerely hoping that they can poke him a little bit, or poke his kids, actually, to drive him down, because he was really the first inspiration.
Yeah, Ed. So the question is, how much is admission? I'll go ahead and ask how much is a membership, and about how long should a person allot to explore in the museum?
So memberships start at $60, all the way up to as much money as you want to give me on an annual basis. The top formal one is $1,000, but I'm not going to turn away anything else. To get in, one of the biggest issues that we had locally in terms of PR was trying to make sure that people knew that this was for everybody in the community. This was not just the rich folks building a monument to their own greatness. And so we tried to price competitively. So it's $13 for an adult, $11 for seniors, $10 for veterans, active current law enforcement and military get in for free. Kids start at $8. We have group rates. It is Arkansas, so I do have to charge you tax. So when it comes up to more than $13, don't be surprised. We've had a lot of people surprised. But yeah, we want to be competitive. We want people to engage it as much as possible, and I don't want cost to be a barrier to anybody, regardless of age.
Got you. Any other questions? Oh, about how much time should someone allot to spending there?
So if you're a skimmer, probably 30 to 45 minutes. If you're the one that wants to read every label and watch every video and push every button, you're going to be in there for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, Alfred. To be a marshal. Process to become a marshal.
Yes, they really hope that this becomes a recruiting boon for them. I think, like most federal jobs, there are application periods. You can go online. I don't think prior law enforcement experience is required, although I imagine it really, really helps. But you end up going through a federal law enforcement training program, and they train you up.
Any other? All right, Jana? Is the building open for events, weddings, things like that?
Yes.
Facility rentals are your friend.
Yes. Yeah. It really is one of the it's the best view of the Arkansas River, I think, probably, period. And it is a wonderful place. We are already booking out into next year, into 2025. So if you want to have a really killer party anywhere in the River Valley, the Marshall's Museum is your place. And again, priced competitively, but it's just awesome. If you haven't at least walked in, if you're unsure, just call me and I'll let you in for free, and then you can pay at the end if you're really, not sure about it. But it really is a tremendous place, and we're gonna hopefully, along with T-shirt sales, make a whole lot on wedding receptions and holiday parties and a variety of other stuff.
Yep. All right, anything else? Okay. Question is contact info to book a field trip.
Come yell at me at the end, and I'll make sure I get your information, or you can just call the main line, but I'll get your info.
Another question here?
This young lady had one in the back.
Oh, sorry. How do you feel the museum will make an impact on our state?
It better. After 20 years and $50 million, if we don't have some sort of an impact, I'm going to be looking for a new job sooner than I thought. I think, I know from the folks who have walked in, they don't know what to expect. And the more that they do, the most impactful for me has been the number of folks and groups that have walked in that have said, I normally don't feel comfortable in museums. This usually isn't a place where I feel like my story is told or like I belong coming here. And I don't bum rush them. I give them some time to actually go through, but to say, what do you think? How did you feel about that? And when they come in and say, this is great, our story was told, my story was told in a way that is helpful and really moves along the conversation. And so I think for us, economically, yes, culturally, yes, but I think also we're going to be a place where we can have the difficult conversations that we can almost have nowhere in our current climate, where you don't have to agree with everybody, but you should at least be able to have a conversation without, throwing your shoes at each other. So,
All right, I think we've run out of time. Ben, thank you so much for making the trek down I-40.
Thank you. Stay right there, man, because I've got a little speaker gift for you. Thank you so much. That was super interesting, and I have not been yet, but I'm very excited to go. So this is for you. Thank you so much for being here.
thank you very much.
Appreciate it. That is a little something we are in a couple of, probably about a month, there's going to be a mural that we're sponsoring that will be in the River Market, and it really shows the native look, wildflowers of Arkansas, but Little Rock is big on fun, and our theme here is Power of Fun. Cool. So it's a little thing you can put on your desk and remind you to have fun in life and to come back to Little Rock.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kelly. Great discussion. So please don't forget to check your newsletter. Karen sent one out today. Those have the links to the Dunbar volunteer opportunities. They also have a link to help with the Ottenheimer students. So T. Martin and Cindy are heading that up. They're going to be here in just a couple of weeks, and we are looking for volunteers to help them see Arkansas, all different parts of Arkansas, host them. So please, if you're interested and your family's interested in that, do click on that link in the newsletter. Also, don't forget, next week is a really great panel of, we're going to be talking about internships, and it's going to be all about what makes a win-win for you as a business and the intern. It's a perfect opportunity to bring your interns to see Rotary and what Rotary's all about, and kind of give them a taste of the opportunities that Rotary can give them as they hit the career field. So we will see you next week, and we are adjourned. Thank you.